when I reference stem cells and our endogenous production of stem cells, what type of stem cells does the body create?
The body does not really create them. They're created when we're born, and then you have a reservoir, and of course they divide over time as we use them, so that we have a continuous supply of them. As we said earlier, that supply diminishes over time, and the potency diminishes also over time. And I think that's a great bridge into the stem cells that we are working with. And while I may be the CEO of the company, what is really interesting is the science and the professor behind it all. So maybe to give you a short introduction to you and your listeners, who am I and why am I here and why should you listen to me at all? Well, I'm just a regular guy from the southern part of Sweden. I moved to Stockholm more than 20 years ago to start business school. At that time, everybody was going to London to become bankers. I come from a family of doctors. I didn't see that as my future, really, working too much, earning much more money than the Swedish doctors. But anyway, so I changed from business school to med school at Karolinska University, or Institute instead, which is the leading medical university in Europe, the medical university who decides every year who gets the Nobel Prize in medicine. And from day one, I understood, well, becoming a physician is amazing. This is what I want to do. Though the students at business school, they were a bit more extrovert, which suited me better. So I kept hanging out in both places, and in some kind of manic episode a few years later, I ended up with double degrees. So I've been moving between those two worlds over the past 10 plus years now. I spent 7 years as a clinical physician, half of that time in the ER for grown-ups at Karolinska University Hospital, and half of that time in GP offices around Sweden and Norway. I spent my time as a management consultant with Boston Consulting Group, working with healthcare. And 8 years ago by now, I kind of found my way home as an entrepreneur. Co-founded one of Sweden's largest digital platforms for physical healthcare to be able to do telemedicine and meet their patients in a responsible and effective way. And 3 years ago, I got the call that changed my life. One of the most prominent businesswomen of Sweden called me and said, Mattias, we've seen your background. It looks very interesting for us because we're now going to found the world's biggest stem cell company based on research from one of the world's most well-renowned professors of clinical stem cell research from Karolinska Institute. She has devoted her entire life to one certain kind of stem cell, which is called mesenchymal stem cells, or just MSCs. And they have been found over the past 20 plus years to A, have a very interesting safety profile, and B, to have three features where there's a consensus in the scientific community around how they work and why that is interesting. And those three things are, they're anti-inflammatory. Inflammation, as you know, is the main driver behind chronic diseases, behind aging, and also behind cancer, or many types of cancer. So A, anti-inflammatory. B, they're regenerative and can help heal damaged tissue. Whether it is the minor damages to your knee cartilage after running 5K in the morning, or if you're in a car crash, or if you have a diabetic ulcer to your foot, for example. So A, anti-inflammatory, B, regenerative, and C, hard word for a Swedish speaker, immunomodulatory, meaning that they can help rebalance or reset the immune system when it goes out of spec or when it goes rogue. I think everybody knows of diabetes type 1 being autoimmune disease. The cells cannot be used to cure diabetes type 1, at least not yet today. But in clinical trials, for example, they have been shown to uphold the insulin production for longer for people who have been hit by diabetes type 1. And we can get back to the science and all different indications, but to paint a really broad picture, you can throw a dart at a hospital organogram, and whatever clinic you hit, there's an ongoing trial. So there are hundreds of ongoing trials around the world, and all of them initially confirmed the safety profile, and then they are more or less successful. But we are really at the, I would say, an inflection point in the history of healthcare, where stem cells and some other therapies will make a huge change in the way we look at health and life and longevity. There's a great quote by a former dean at the Harvard School of Medicine who said that stem cell therapies have the potential to do for chronic diseases what antibiotics did for infectious diseases. And while that's a great one-liner, what did he really say? Well, 8 years ago, before Alexander Fleming invented, or rather discovered, as you know, penicillin, you could cut your hand and die from blood poisoning. Children died young from simple infections. Elderly and frail people as well. Even people like you and me, midlife, with good health, could die from what is today considered fairly simple infections. With the antibiotics, that is not a big problem in our part of the world at the moment. Instead, now, 80 years later, we die from chronic diseases, heart infarctions, stroke, Alzheimer, diabetes, and we suffer from arthritis and other signs of aging and disease burdens that diminishes the quality of life. And while Western medicine over the past 50 years has made us live longer, it has not extended the healthy years between 18 and 40 or 55. It has extended the years between 55 and 85, where we're not in full health anymore. And this is where I, as an MD, hope that the mesenchymal stem cells will really come into use. Because while we see from research that they have great potential to heal or alleviate some of the disease burden, or maybe in some cases even cure disease, what I'm truly hoping for is the potential in the stem cells to offset the chronic diseases, delay them, so to prolong our healthy lifespan. And that is what why I think this is truly interesting. And I think also this is why there is such a huge interest in these cells around the world from longevity enthusiasts and people interested into their personal health.
Yeah.